Everyone, today in the First Descendant, we're going to talk about how you can build tanky to never die again on literally any character. So let's get right into it. Into First Descendant, there's a handful of tank stats. You have health, shield, you have defense, as well as mainly if you're fighting bosses and fighting certain enemies, there's also elemental attribute resistances and everything like that. Once you get into the higher level, it seems like just ignoring the attribute resistance is the way to go. Because a lot of people are saying it just doesn't affect your overall tankiness too much. I'm a little bit all over the place, but we'll talk a little bit more about the elemental weaknesses after. I just quickly wanted to bring that up, that a lot of people are just saying that elemental resistances are not super useful, so take that as you will. With any Descendant, you can make them incredibly tanky. This is my Valby. At level 7, she has 6,000 max HP, 32,000 defense, but almost no shield at 252 max shield. So that is my Valby tank breakdown at level 1. And you might be wondering, how in God's name is she so tanky? Well, it's pretty simple. A big brunt of your initial tank stats are external components. As you can see, I have a defense, annihilation, auxiliary power, with a substat of max HP and fire resistance. I don't really care about the fire resistance, it's mainly about the max HP and defense. I have an HP support sensor, but sadly the substats on this do not include any additional tank stats. I have an annihilation memory, and you guessed it, max HP, baby, as well as 4,000 defense as a substat. And then we have my supernova processor, which also has a lot of defense, and it has max shield as a substat, so not ideal. What I'm going for mainly is defense and HP. So defense as a main stat or HP as a main stat, with defense or HP as a secondary stat. I honestly don't think you can stack defense, HP, and shield as substats. I think you can have a defense or HP or shield as substats, because I legitimately have not been able to find any of these that have like HP and defense. But if you're going for another secondary defensive, I don't even know how good resistances are, but I do technically have some fire resistance. So if you want to mainly min-max just defenses, you probably want to go for defense or HP as the main stat, defense or HP on one of the substats, and then another defensive stat like resistance, or you could even get like shield recovery, but it's probably just not as useful. So probably just defenses like toxin resistance and max shield. It's not ideal, but it's way better than having non-defensive stats on your items. So this is what I've been using to be very, very tanky, and it's worked incredibly well. You get a big boost off your max HP. I would, to be honest, like to get a main stat max HP, or like a main stat max HP for this one, and then have the substats as defense, but one thing at a time, okay? These are not perfect by any means. These are just external components right now in the game that I've just picked up and I chose to use. If you didn't know, certain sets such as like the auxiliary annihilation power, the main stat of this one is defense. It will always be defense, because set pieces for external components in the First Descendant have a no matter what set main stat. So if we're going for, let's say, the annihilation stat, no matter what, auxiliary power has defense. No matter what, I think, where is it? Yeah, the memory will no matter what have max HP, and then maybe the processor no matter what has max shield, with a sensor having like HP or defense. I can't quite remember, but just keep in mind, if you're farming a set piece item in the First Descendant, this set will always be defense for annihilation, auxiliary power. It will always be annihilation memory, max HP is the main stat. So if you are set farming for a certain character, the main stat, I believe, will be set depending on the set item. So yeah, you can do what I did, which is just not care. So I threw around and got random support items, and this is purely just to be tanky. It makes running the game a lot easier. It makes killing bosses way easier. I don't have to worry about dying as much. When I min-max individual sets for characters, that'll be a separate story where you're going to want to grind out a lot more for those substats to be the ones you're looking for, max HP or defense. But for now, this is good enough, okay? Because I have defense and max HP, I have max HP, I have max HP defense, and then I have defense. So I have 6 rolls between max HP and defense. I don't have it perfect, but this is so much better than what I need anyways. So at level 1, my Valby is tanky as hell. She has 6k HP and 32 defense. So that is how you can build tanky off external components to never die. You can also do stuff with your reactor, but honestly, reactors are just for damage, so I wouldn't ever look for anything else other than just damage stuff, because I don't think they really give defensive stats. Yeah, they only give damage stats, so make sure you just try to match up those damage stats with the type of character you have. Okay, no, it does have HP heal modifiers. I thought it had some like that. While I wouldn't really say those are necessary, I would definitely go pure damage on all the reactors. Hey, you can do whatever you want. It's up to you. Next up, we have to look at Descendant modules. There's also the Inversion Reinforcement, which is a seasonal event thing. You can essentially add on attribute resistances. You can add on stacking HP, shield, MP skill effect, or defense, and then it gives you incoming damage modifier. So there's also a lot of ways to build tankier around this current event that they have. So definitely want to keep that in mind. Probably want to max out these main 3 so that you get that end stat of like 222 hyperdimensional vision, you get incoming HP reduction, all attribute resistance, so it will give you good stats there. But now let's talk about Descendant defenses. God, I can't speak. There are a lot of ways you can build a Descendant to be defensive. You can just build straight up defense. Defense is a stacking, oh no, it's not a stacking, but it has a lot of diminishing returns because it is a multiplier. So every time you multiply your defense by 2, starting at like, oh god, I can't remember. I could quickly get the first Descendant defense chart, but I believe when you're at about 48,000 defense on the first Descendant, you will get like 60 or like 50% damage reduction. But then when you get a 96,000, it'll double up and only add 10%, I mean, sorry. So it's a little bit like a double, okay? I can't remember the proper word because I'm an idiot. Multiplier of 2 almost. This is, I don't know how true this is, but this is like a rough defense breakpoint. So yeah, after 30k defense, you probably only want to max out at around 60k because you get a 60% damage reduction, whereas at 30k you get 50%. And this is what I was trying to say. I'm a bit of an idiot, so I can't speak. Where I was saying like every time it doubles, it adds 10%. So at like 2,300, it's 20, 13,000, it's 40, 29,000, it's 50. I think this is like rough, maybe not exact, but that's the general breakdown. So you probably don't want to go too ham in defense past like 60,000 unless there's a reason to. If you're an Ajax, you build for it more, etc. and so forth. So just thought I'd let y'all know and remember to keep that in mind when building, okay? So that's the general defense setup. You need defense, but having too much defense is bad. So I would say you definitely want to scale it up with HP as well as having a good amount of defense so that maybe you can have like 30k or something. But HP itself is better to scale up overall since it just grows and it takes better advantage of mods like HP Collector. I really like HP Collector. Instantly recovers 9% max HP, cooldown 2 seconds when you kill an enemy. It can suck a little bit on bosses, but bosses do spawn enemies, so it actually makes it not terrible, believe it or not. So I like to run on defenses for all my characters, increased HP, increased defense, and then usually HP collector. I can always swap this around if I'm doing something else, if I'm doing certain bosses, if I'm doing certain activities. You can always just swap it out later on, right? But for now, that is my preferred defensive setup. It commits 3 mods to defense. I don't necessarily need to commit that many, but I don't like dying, so it commits 3 mods to defense. It still gives me 7 more mod slots to fully build tankiness, or sorry, build damage. And then I still have like my auxiliary and my transcendent mod, so maybe it's a little bit too much. Maybe if you have a lot of defense, you could scale down the increased defense, but yeah, really it's up to you. I like to go for that sweet spot of like around 30,000 defense with some HP. But again, my external components are not perfect. Right? So increased defense is 160% increased defense. Max HP is 218% on this mod. And then HP collector is straight up healing. So if you're going for a lot of defense builds, you can go for other stuff. I don't think critical hit resistance is worth it on like ironclad defense. I probably would never use HP conversion. Shield conversion is not a bad idea. If you're not building shield, though. I mean, HP conversion is good if you're not building HP and if you're doing a specific shield build, but most people aren't doing that right now, so I wouldn't recommend that overall. Defense stance, not the worst, but your outgoing damage modifier decreases, so maybe not the best. Spear and shield is pretty interesting because it gives you some skill power as well as defense, and iron defense, also pretty cool because it gives you defense, and again, it gives you a skill power modifier. Oh, there it is. So it's definitely possible and probably not even the worst idea to use one of these over your increased defense mod. I just haven't committed the resources to these yet, so I haven't bothered, but it's something to definitely think about where you can mod in your defense stats while also giving yourself like a little bit of a damage boost, right? Just a little bit of a damage boost, but I maxed out an HP conversion for when I do defense and shield builds, but it's just not good yet, okay? Not good yet at all. There's a lot of max HP mods. You have ones like HP amplification, which I maxed out because it's pretty good, right? HP conversion shield, more shield, less HP. You have the other defense one. For max HP here, you get minus MP. So I took that as well because I'm like, okay. You quickly see there are a lot of defensive mods. Like all of these defend one way or another. Skills consume HP or attacks one way or another. Overwhelming HP, which fixes max shield at 1 and increases max HP by % of max shield. The increased HP can be further increased by other buffs. So there's a lot of things you can do once you're done with your external components here to look around. But I would say maybe just like mess around and look at the different mods. You could definitely throw on Battle of Stamina. I think Battle of Stamina probably has less max HP than increased HP. But the annoying thing is you have to really max things out, double check online to see what their maximum value stat is. So it's a little bit of a pain. I wouldn't really recommend any of these like maximized resistances because they don't really seem worth it. I will show you gold mods that are really good for elemental resistance though, but these ones not so much. So I wouldn't really recommend that. But there's also a lot of shield mods you can use later on, like again, HP conversion shield if you're doing a defensive shield build. But it'll really depend what your external components are, okay? These depend so highly on your external components because if I take off my max HP here, right, it's minus 200%. I go down to 2,000. All of my HP is pretty much built then off of my external components. So your external components multiply off of your mods, which really will give you that huge boost of HP right there. See, like HP amplification, it gives me a little bit more HP, but no shield. But like, that's fine with my level of HP. That's not even a bad idea. So there's just a lot of things you can think about, a lot of things you can swap around. Now, the last thing I wanted to show you were the golden mods. So these are the mods you want to use for certain boss and elemental resistances because they give you immunity. Okay, so perfect anti-venom It has poison immunity and toxin resistance. Okay, I mainly just care about the poison immunity. I think toxin resistance and like resistances build somewhat the same as defenses. It's just not really worth throwing a ton on right now. But hey, let me know what you like to build. There's frostbite immunity. There's one of these immunity mods for every single element, like electric, fire, cold, toxin. There's one for everything. I just don't have all of them right now. Early game, I use some of these resistance mods, right? But I chucked those out later game. It just didn't seem worth it enough. I've early on had polygenic antibody, but I just don't think it does enough, you know? So it's really, you want to swap around and throw on these like solution mods because they aren't locked to anything. So you can just throw them on and it's not even a big deal, right? Not a big deal at all. So I would probably recommend those over any of the other general, right, immunity mods or resistance mods for now, because they seem to do a better job. A lot of the higher level hard mode bosses, you can get clapped around if you don't have good defenses built, so it's very important. As of right now, everyone, that's kind of the defense and shielding and building defensively breakdown. You can go for shield, no problem. You can go for HP, no problem. You can pick up additional stuff that's like a HP heal modifier so that you can heal more. It's probably not fully worth it, but it's a thing, okay? There's also shield recovery. I think like shield recovery speed or something. You might not have a ton of mods for that. A lot of that might just be... Yeah, a lot of that might just be like sub-stats, but this is like a HP recovery, or sorry, HP loss, but shield recovery mod, so lots of niche mods you can still look around for depending on how you want to build defensively. So yeah, right now, that is the big breakdown. You need external components to have defensive stats, or else you're gonna get garbage dumped on, okay? If these do not have defensive stats, you're gonna get shit on if you're not level 40. And even if you're level 40, external components are still the majority of your defensive stats usually. Your Descendant levels come with a lot of boosted stats, but honestly, your external components, if you're not a tanky character, will probably outshine them. Because if I swap to like what, Ultimate Bunny right now, you'll see like she's still tanky. But she has 8k HP compared to my Valby at like 6 to 7k. She doesn't even have that much more defenses. She has 36,500 defense compared to 32,000 on my like Valby level 7. So it's like, damn, dude. The only difference you'll see is like on Ajax, where he is a tank, right? So he has like double the amount of HP and almost 20k more defense than the previous two. But he has the same mods I have on almost. I do have HP amplification on him, so that's why his HP is so much bigger. But like, it's not even huge. If you take off HP amplification, you can see like, oh, he only gets another 3,000 HP or so. So yeah, it is very important to build up your defenses, build up your HP, and then, or shield, depending on what type of build you want to go for, and just make sure your external components have good defensive slots. If you're going for a full set, make sure you have good HP or defense or shield on for substats, since the base stat will always be just like a set number. Every Annihilation auxiliary power, I think every single one in the game will always have 3,512 defense. So you just have to get good substat rolls. Or you can do what I did, which was grab random external components with HP or defense on the main stat. And yeah, I still haven't cared too much. This isn't even anywhere near a perfect build, but it's built enough to be tanky as shit in the game. And you know what? That's all that really matters right now. Not dying, very important. Killing, you can do it with weapons and abilities. So, yep, that's how you can build tanky to never die in the First Descendant. Let me know what you think. Subscribe, like. You can use First Descendant creator code Pupsker, #8809. Check out all the socials, Twitch, YouTube. There's just so many, right? 24/7 streaming here and there on Twitch, replaying the VOD. So if you want to support the channel, you can always swing by. If I'm not there, it's probably just playing the VOD and playing a lot of ads. So if you ever want to watch anything or sub while I'm not there to support the channel, I do appreciate it. We also have YouTube memberships, but not a ton of people use those. So thank you. Cheers.